Right. This is the summary, as I said, of the 7 categories, and it shows to you which category, which recommendation falling under which category. So that's another form of looking at it. I prefer the previous one. It's more easy. Okay? Then I've put for you here the new recommendations as compared to the previous old recommendation. That's for illustration purpose. That's not for the sake of the exam. But that's for your information. You do not need to memorize this. You do not need to know which recommendation was previously which recommendation. No need. Okay? But if you want to know, here you go. You don't want to know. Okay. Great. Now let's take recommendation 1 and 2. Recommendation dealing with the need for countrywide and institution-specific risk assessment. So that's a new recommendation. Just flip over because, as I said, the numbering is a little bit different, but you will find this. Okay? 131. Okay. Great. So 134. Recommendation dealing with the need for countrywide and institution-specific risk assessment, which is recommendation number 1. A process to better foster risk-based approach to AML CTF. Emphasis need for national cooperation and coordination. So now we are talking about recommendation 1 and 2, which we spoke about under the AML CTF policies and procedures. Yeah. 40. Okay. 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 I'll take that into consideration in the future. Sure. Thank you. Okay. Recommendation number 3 recommends that countries criminalize money laundering in accordance with the Vienna Convention and the Palermo Convention. And we knew that the Palermo Convention defined money laundering as a 3-stage process. You still remember the 3-stage process? Huh? Process. Huh? Concealment. Acquire. Acquisition. Huh? And conversion. Yes? Very important. Okay, don't forget. Okay? Okay, recommendation number 3. Designated categories of money laundering offenses. And this is very important. So they have here listed additional categories of predicate crimes. So this is the categories of predicate crimes. I do not want you to memorize this. I do not want you to memorize this. I want you to know one fact. Do one crime, get one crime free at least. Because if you read through this, you will not find any crime which is left. And this is the additional. So that's in addition to whatever was criminalized before. So if you read through them, you will not find any crime that's not resulting in money laundering. So you do not need to memorize all these categories of offenses. Okay? But anyway, if you want to go through them, you have these categories of offenses. Okay? And tax crimes also, of course, is very important because tax evasion is money laundering and tax avoidance is not money laundering. Okay? Tax avoidance is not money laundering. Tax evasion is money laundering. Do you know the difference? Tax avoidance is not. Tax evasion is. Yeah, no. Avoidance, no. Avoidance because even sometimes Big Four will help you to avoid taxation, which they call it tax optimization. Okay? But tax evasion, that means you are submitting a fraudulent tax report. So that means you are cooking the books. You're doing fraud. And fraud is money laundering. And that's why when you do tax evasion, you will be charged with 3 crimes. Tax evasion, fraud, money laundering. Okay? So this is again very important because in the exam, if they told you about tax avoidance, this is not money laundering. Okay? The interpretive notes to recommendation number 3 indicates that the knowledge required to prove money laundering must be consistent with the standards set forth in the Vienna and Palermo Conventions. The interpretive notes indicate that liability should apply to legal persons as well as to individuals. So the liability here is for legal persons plus individuals as well.
Legal persons, individuals who are
behind the legal entity, yes. Okay? Huh? Anything not clear? the legal liability extends to not just the legal entity, also to persons behind that legal entity. So for example, if I form a company named XYZ, if there is a legal liability, it will apply to that company as well as me, because I'm the owner of, or I'm the one behind that legal entity. UBO, yes. When financial institutions should undertake customary due diligence measures. This again, one of the most important flashcards and one of the most tricky ones. Okay? Because if you don't understand what's meant in every bullet point, you will be off-road. You will be derailed. Okay. 139, 140. Okay. When do you start your due diligence process? By heart, when you establish the relation. Please, 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 3 times. Not when you open the account. Establishing the relation is different from opening an account. I may not have an account, but I may have a relation. I may close the account and the relation may be still there. So when do I start it? When I establish the relation. When do I stop it? When I exit the relation. See how it is? And I love this word. Establish, exit. Get out of the relation. Not stop the relation, exit the relation. See how particular they are. If you relate that to the account, wrong. Because you could have customers who don't have accounts. And there are a long list of this. Supplement credit card holders, your customers. Walking by customers, your customers. Those who rent safe deposit boxes, your customers. Taking a personal loan, credit card, the guarantors, the guardians, those who are having a power of attorney on the accounts. All these are your customers. And all of them, they don't have accounts. So if you relate the due diligence to the account, that means, I would say 20% of your customers, you're not doing your CDD on, which is wrong. So when do you start your due diligence? When you establish the relation. When do you stop your due diligence? When you exit the relation. Through the outset of this relation, from start till the exit, your due diligence should not stop. Ongoing relation, ongoing due diligence. Not intervals, not once every 5 years, not once every 3 years. No, at any single point of time. If the US regulator stepped into the bank, picked up any customer randomly, and they found that the CDD information is not up to date, you will be fined. That's how it is. At any point of time, I'm stepping in, I pick up any random customer. Is the relation active? Yes. The CDD, is it up to date? Yes, you are good. No? Fine. See how it is? Your only excuse to stop the due diligence is when you exit the relation. As far as the relation is going on, you cannot stop the due diligence at any point of time. See how difficult it is, right? So, establish business relation, carrying out occasional transactions. That means you are dealing with walking by customers. Those who do one-time off transactions. I came to the branch, I want to do refining. I want to do currency exchange. I want to encash a check. I'm a beneficiary of the check, and I want to encash it. I want to receive an inward transfer. I don't have an account. I want to receive it over the counter, right? So any kind of walking by customers, in this case, you must also do a due diligence. That means there is a relation here that's going to be established, even if it's a one-time off. Yep. 3 and 4 is really very tricky. Why? Because many people, when they read this, even in the literature of the ACAMS, and that's why I also, in the 7th edition, I'm insisting on changing this. Because here, there is a suspicion of money laundering or terrorism financing. That means before I suspect I'm not doing my due diligence? No. Here you are changing the level of your due diligence from CDD to E2D2. Right? To E2, to extra enhanced due diligence. Why? Because I'm suspecting in this case. So here, it's not meant that when should you do your due diligence? No. When should you change the level of the due diligence? When I have suspected and reported the customer to FinCEN. The financial institution doubts previously obtained customer identification data. Again, I'm changing the level of due diligence. Initially, I have classified this customer as moderate risk. Later on, I discovered that the information that I obtained from this customer is fraudulent. is not real ones. It's not right. Should I keep the customer as moderate risk? Definitely not. I may even take a decision to exit this relation and report the customer because you have given me false information. So 3 and 4 is not when should you start your CDD. No, but here, when should you change the level of your due diligence? Clear? Normally, as per the US, you cannot exit unless you get exit based on a criminal background or grounds unless you get a release from FinCEN. Because exiting the relation can destroy the whole investigation. But I can exit based on a business decision. And that's always the back door that we use in banks. If I don't want to get the FIU release, I will say, well, the regulations or the laws give me the right to exit a relation based on a business perspective. That business is not making sense for me. The cost is more than the benefit from the customer. No, that's why I'm saying I'm exiting not because I'm reporting. But if I report normally, I normally ask to get FinCEN release because I may exit and they may want me to continue the relation. So that's why if I reported normally, I should get FinCEN clearance. But if I want to exit a relation based on a business decision, I do not need to get FinCEN release.
Yes, but they will come back to you. You will state that I'm exiting relation
based on a business decision, yes.
But at the same time, I'm filing
STR? No. If I'm filing an STR, I need to get their clearance because they may be doing an investigation and that investigation requires that account to be open, to be stayed.
Based on your due diligence, if you are not satisfied, then you can seek the senior management approval
Yeah,
to exit the relation.
business decision, business, not criminal. That's exactly the business. That's what I'm saying. That's a business decision. You will not exit as an RO. You will definitely go and seek senior management approval and legal release as well, because there are certain legal aspects to exiting the relation. But that's a business decision. It's not a criminal decision. In criminal decision, the only way to get out of the relation or exit the relation based on a criminal, I have to get FinCEN release. They have to tell me, okay, you can exit because there is no investigation running. They may have got their evidence already, and they are okay.
And that's required by the law in the US?
Yeah. You cannot exit the relation based on a criminal perspective without getting FinCEN approval.
What about perspective in terms of exiting and filing?
FATF is not a regulator, as I mentioned. So, perspective, again, I would say it should follow the same thing. But FATF is not a regulator. So they will not tell you you must do this and you must do that, but they will recommend.
Recommendation 10, they'll say
Yeah.
their point of view is
Seeking senior management approval, yeah.
after based on your due diligence, enhanced due diligence, if you
Yeah.
are not satisfied,
Yeah.
go to your senior management.
And exit, yeah, that's right.
If you link it to reporting, it's going to be a different.
Yeah, that's what. Now, FATF is not linked to reporting. They are also not saying
Yeah.
file a STR and release.
Yeah.
They are saying based on your due diligence.
Due diligence, yeah,
You have made this. So they are not talking about the reporting.
exactly.
I understand. But when you put reporting in the next,
Yep.
exiting and reporting, it's totally
Different picture, different scenario.
Due diligence is a process that you
Yes.
are required to do, no matter you're reporting or not. This is a
Yep,
requirement.
true.
But once you file, okay,
Yeah.
a case, my question is, what is the perspective in terms of that? You have made a decision, okay, that this is, as per my due diligence, it's a risky customer. And I'm exiting, okay, using the statement based on a business decision, but at the same time, I'm filing. Here, what is
No, if you are filing, then you need to follow the FATF recommendation regarding filing. If you suspect, you must file an STR. Once you file an STR, it's with FinCEN to decide what needs to be done. But I'm saying a normal thing where I don't need to file, but I'm not happy with the customer, or I see that this relation is not worth it for me, then I need to get senior management approval, and I will take a business decision to exit the relation.
So in case of once you are reported, you are in their hands.
Yeah, you cannot do anything. And they are very proactive, by the way. Like in the US, if you report, the following day they will send you an investigation team. It's like this. If you report actually early in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, they will be there in your back.
But
Yeah,
reporting
to FIU, FinCEN.
But in the material they says that law enforcement authorities.
Because FinCEN is part of court, so the things can be, you know, you will have, you know, like, you know, the FBI involved. You'll have, you know, other investigative bodies involved. So they will be working hand in hand. But your reporting is always to FinCEN. You do not report to anybody else. But FinCEN can liaise, can get other prosecutors to come on board. So sometimes the investigation involves more than FinCEN. And you could get a court order, not through FinCEN. You could get a direct court order, which is like, you know, the subpoena, search warrant, restraint warrants, and all this, which we're going to be discussing next week in, you know, the conducting and supporting the investigation process. So in the investigation, yes, it could be multiple prosecution bodies, but when you report exclusively and only to FinCEN. You don't report to the court, you don't report to the police, you don't report to anybody else. Yep. Customer due diligence measures identify the customer and verifying customer's identity using reliable information. That's again very important. So what kind of ID is acceptable? In the US, you must have the social security number as the main identifier. And they even were not so particular about the physical address, because in the US there are lots of people who don't have a physical address. So with your social security number, they can identify you very easily. And that's why social
See, like a person who is coming, just landed in US.
Yeah.
Enrolling.
They call you an NRA,
NRA.
non-resident alien. I hate the wording, alien. So if you are not from the US, you are an alien.
Open the account.
They open accounts for NRAs, yes, but they are higher risk. Yeah, higher. Yeah, if you are no NRA, you can get a social security number, by the way, even if you are an NRA. If you apply for, no, you can get a security. You don't need to work. I have a social security number in the US. You do not need to work. Before. Yeah, they stopped giving SSNs. Yeah, but you still can open an NRA account now. They have not closed it. Yeah, you can open accounts. Yeah. As an NRA. Yeah. Non-resident alien. Right. So using reliable information is very important. So you must use the acceptable means of identification. Identify the UBO, the ultimate beneficial owner. Obtaining information regarding the purpose and intended nature of the business relationship. Conducting ongoing due diligence. See the word? Not periodic, not interval, ongoing due diligence. That's again very important. Record keeping, 5 years as per the US, and you go to the higher if you are operating in a cross-border context. PEPs, flashcard, very important. What are the steps in dealing with designated certain categories? Remember in the FATF when we said dealing with certain categories of customers? This is PEPs. Have appropriate risk management system to determine whether the customer is a PEP or not. You can subscribe to a PEP list, like the list that we are providing, PEP list. So you put the name, and if the person is a political person or a public person, then you get the match. Of course, that doesn't cover all the PEPs in the world, because, again, there are certain countries who are not so transparent in releasing the PEP information. But in your application form, you should always include some questions which would identify the customer if he's a PEP or not. Like, are you currently assuming any political position? Were you assuming any political position? Are you a relative of the first degree of somebody who is or were assuming a political position? Based on the answers, you will identify if this person is a PEP or not, and with the assistance also of the PEP list. Obtain senior management approval for business relationship. And this senior management approval, there's 2 keywords. Prior, written. Not FYI, not by the way, I opened a relation yesterday for a PEP. Or just a half an hour back, I opened for your information. No, it's not for your information. It is, kindly, I seek your approval, pre-approval to establish this relation. And that's again very important. So again, the multiple choice, if they give you all this and they said, obtain senior management approval immediately after starting the relation. Wrong. It's pre. So you obtain the approval, only then you can establish the relation. Not when you establish, immediately you go and get the senior management. You need to take care about these small words. Okay? Take reasonable measures to establish the source of funds. Why? Because I want to ensure that he's not a CPEP, a corrupted PEP. That the source of his funds is not linked to corruption. Conduct EDD, ongoing EDD, enhanced due diligence. Domestic PEPs are now included because previously they excluded them, then they put them back now. So domestic PEPs are now included as PEPs. So a PEP, whether domestic or foreign, is a PEP as per the US law and also as per the FATF. Okay, any question regarding PEPs? Okay. Cross-border correspondent banking. Again, we are talking about the recommendations from 12 to 16, which is dealing with specific categories of customers. Correspondent banking. Again, flashcard, memorize. Gather sufficient information about the respondent institution to understand the nature of their business. Assess respondent institutions' AML, CTF program and controls. Obtain prior written senior management approval on new correspondent relationships. Same as what applies to the PEPs. Yeah. No, you assess it if it's satisfactory or not. Like as a US correspondent bank, I will assess my respondent FFI, foreign financial institution, AML laws. Is it satisfactory to me, or will it pose risks that will make me non-compliant? You got the point? So that's the sort of assessment. Again, in one of the exams, I put one question, case study, which 85% of the people got it wrong, and ACAM's asking me to. Why? I get a case study about a bank opening an account in another bank. I didn't mention it's a correspondent bank. And then I told them which of the following is true. And I started putting things related to correspondent banking, like obtaining prior senior management approval. That's not required. In this case, the bank here is a customer. He's not opening a Vostro or Nostro account. That's not a correspondent account. So unless they mention clearly it's a correspondence relation, the bank in this case is a client. That client here is an FI, financial institution. HSBC can be a client of Citibank. They can open an account with Citi. Does it necessarily have to be a correspondent? No, it does not. So unless it's mentioned correspondent banking relation, that will not apply. So again, you need to be very careful when you read the case itself. Pray that's not much in your exam. Pray. Okay? Great. Be satisfied that the respondent bank has verified the identity of and has performed ongoing due diligence with regards to user of PTAs. Why? Because PTAs is higher risk, because you have a direct correspondent access. Shell bank correspondent accounts are prohibited. No shell banks. Okay? That's all what you need to know about the correspondent banking. These are the steps that you need to follow when you establish a correspondent banking relationship. Money or value transfer, MVTS. Again, acronyms. Take care of the acronyms, so in the exam you will not get surprised. MVTS, which is money or value transfer. Why did they mention value? To include the hawala. See? Why didn't they say MTS, money transfer services? They said money or value to include hawalas. Okay? Countries should make sure that they are licensed or registered. So if you are dealing with hawala, you must be licensed or registered. Otherwise, you are illegal, offering financial services without a license. Subject to the relevant AML measures called for in the recommendations, agents must also be licensed and or registered, and the MVTS provider should maintain a list of its agents. So as an MVT provider, I should have a list of my agents. Who are my agents? Like for example, Western Union. What are the agents? For example, here, the agents, Al-Ansari, UAE Exchange, these are agents of Western Union. So they have to have that list. So who are your agents? Right? Agents should be included in MVTA's providers, AML CTF program, and monitor them for compliance. So if I have an agent, I need to make sure that the agent is up to my standards in AML compliance. They should not violate my standards and cause me not compliant at that. That's regarding MVTs, which is recommendation number 14. Recommendation 16, wire transfers. Countries should make sure financial institutions include the required accurate originator and beneficiary information. As I said, you need to know 5 things. Sender, if you look at it from outward transfers, you need to know the sender, beneficiary, beneficiary bank, beneficiary country, purpose of the transfer. Inward transfers, you need to know the sender, sender bank, sender country, receiver, purpose of the transfer.
Sender, receiver bank.
We are talking about inward or outward? Outward. That means I am issuing the transfer. It's coming on the originating bank. So I need to know the sender, my client, here.
It's for inward.
Outward. I need to know the sender in my bank, the receiver, the beneficiary bank, the beneficiary country, and the purpose of the transfer. Okay? If it's an inward, coming to my bank,
Receiver.
just give them some time for this to arrive. I need to know the receiver, the sender, sender bank, sender outward transfer. I need to know the sender, the beneficiary, beneficiary bank, beneficiary country, purpose of the transfer. Inward, I need to know the receiver, sender bank, sender country, purpose of the transfer. Okay? So, beneficiary, sender bank, sender country, purpose of the transfer. So always 5 things. Okay? The first 4, none of them can be on the blacklist. So the first 4, except for the purpose of the transfer, because you will not check anything. What you will check? The first 4 parties, none of them can be on the blacklist for that transfer to take place. If any one of them is on the blacklist, the transfer should be stopped. Okay? Great? Okay. Interpretive note, the financial institution should retain the payment information for all wire transfers over US dollar or euro $1,000. $1,000 or euro. Okay? Ensure the information remains with the wire transfer throughout the payment chain. So if you have a single correspondency relation or a multiple correspondency relation, that information must be with the transfer throughout that chain, from the originating party till the receiving party. There should not be any blackouts. There should not be any masking of any information throughout the transfer process or chain. Yes, because I mean here we are talking about a very simple correspondent relation. There is only one correspondent, but sometimes there is an intermediate bank, 1 or 2, sometimes more. So in this case, this information have to move through the chain. Okay? Sure. Both sides. The sender and the receiving bank. Sending bank and the receiving bank. And any intermediate bank in the middle. And any clearing. Like for example, if it's, let's say I'm making a transfer in US dollar through Citibank, my correspondent, I will check, Citi will check, US Department of Treasury will check, and the receiving bank will check. All the responsibility is all everybody. If the originator didn't check and I received it, I cannot rely on his checking. If I checked and I found something wrong, it's my responsibility.
For example, if remittance came in,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know the remitter, right?
You have the right to ask.
Yes.
Yes, you need to go and ask. Any missing information, you have the right to ask before processing this thing. But you cannot process things anonymously. You cannot. Yep. Clear? اسأليني لو في أي حاجة. تفضل. Okay.
Okay. The Corresponding Bank Act, maybe that's in terms of only customer due diligence as a general practice. I'm not sure. Clarify me if I'm wrong. So the requirement of conducting customer due diligence as a general is on the account holder bank, right? But in terms of
Here you are talking about, for example, PTA. In PTA, let's say I'm a client of Mashriq Bank. Mashriq Bank open a PTA account, PTA, correspondent account in Citibank in US. Now, I don't need Mashriq Bank anymore. I can give instructions directly to Citibank to debit my account and pay a beneficiary. Who's responsible for maintaining the CDD? It's Mashreq Bank, not Citi. Citi will rely on the CDD of Mashreq Bank. Yep, that makes sense. But in the transfers, if it's a normal transfer, each bank in the chain, they have to make sure that all the information is correct. Recently here, yeah. Yeah.
And the reason these accounts have been closed was the banks were afraid to lose their corresponding banks.
That's right.
Pressure from this.
Yep. Yeah. They were not able to apply the KYCC, knowing their customers' customers. So they were not satisfied that these exchange houses are maintaining a proper KYC. But they are using my banking system. That means it will affect my correspondence relation. That's why I shut them down. And same thing happened in the US. I believe I think back in 2010, they closed all the Somalian exchange houses. There was a big problem that all Somalian exchange houses were closed. Even the Somalian American people, they said we're not able to send money back home. Whether that's a right move or wrong move, because again, they pushed everybody to Hawala, because these people have to send money back home. But that was because of this. They have perceived that the Somalians are very high risk, and they cannot allow any Somalian exchange house. Yeah? Great? Perfect. AML program should include recommendation 18. Whenever we talk about AML program, we have to include 5 main pillars. 5 pillars. First one, designation of a compliance officer. If you talk about compliance program, that means designation of a CCO. If you talk about AML program, designation of an MLRO or AML officer. Number 2, written PP&Cs, policies, procedures, and controls. Okay? Ongoing training program. Number 4, auditing for that program. Number 5, which the FATF have not introduced, is board of director oversight. And that's why in the new sanctions now, you will find that after they fine the financial institution, they go further and they start fining the board of director members, individual fines. And that happened here in UAE. In E-Trade, if you heard about the company E-Trade, it's a DIFC company regulated by DFSA. DFSA put a $300,000 fine on E-Trade as a company. Then it went further to the 3 board of director members and fined them individual fines, $30,000 each. Why? Where is your board of director oversight on the AML program? That was not there. So they were in fault. And that's why, as I said, 5 main elements. Don't forget the board of director oversight over the program. Because many people, they design beautiful programs, but they don't get it approved from the board, or the board of director are not actually monitoring the execution of the program itself. And that's their responsibility as part of the corporate governance if you are going to move to a corporate governance perspective. Okay? So, as per the FATF, as per ACAMS, it's 4 main elements. I would strongly recommend adding a 5th element, which is board of director oversight, if you are asked about what are the main elements of any compliance or any AML program. Okay? They do ask for it sometimes, but anyway, if they gave you those 4, only I didn't get any board of director oversight, that's fine. But if they put board of director oversight, you should add that as well. Sometimes they put it, sometimes they don't. Okay? Reporting of STRs and compliance must report to the financial intelligence units. Of course, FIU is a financial intelligence unit. It can be named differently in different countries. Like for example, here in UAE, it's AML SCU. In US, FID, in US, it's FinCEN, Financial Crime Enforcement Network. In Australia, it's the AUSTRAC. In Canada, it's FINTRAC. It's Australian Transaction and Control Unit. FINTRAC, Financial Transaction and Control Unit. Regardless whether it's AUSTRAC, FINTRAC, FinCEN, I don't care. Again, at the end of the day, it's an FIU. So FIU is an FIU. This is a national center for receiving and dissemination of any information related to suspicious transactions related to money laundering or terrorism financing. So that's the whole purpose of an FIU. Okay? Report all, and I would put 1,000 lines under the word all suspicious activity and attempted transactions, thank you, regardless of the amount. Very important, guys, regardless of the amount. Don't tell me here $10,000, please. When I suspect, I don't care about the amount. Even if I suspect in 1 cent, I will report that 1 cent. There's a big difference between STR and CTR. CTR, $10,000 below, it's not part of my CTR. $10,000 and 1 cent and above, it's part of my CTR. Suspicious, I don't look at the amount. Is it suspicious or not? Yes, report. No, don't. Currency transaction reporting. Yes, CTRs are mainly in the border. That's why, for example, you find here 60,000 dirhams or 60,000 riyals in Saudi. Mainly it's $10,000 worldwide. So that's a CTR. That's not an STR. Not everybody's name in the CTR is suspicious. Right? That's a big difference. So if your name came in the CTR, that doesn't mean that you are bad. That means you have done a large transaction. That's okay. Otherwise, we're all bad. 10,000 above $10,000. So up to 10,000 you don't report. 10,000 and 1 cent you report. لا خليها so not you confuse yourself. 10,000 above $10,000. So forget about UAE now, please. I'm sorry for that, but for the sake of the exam, you don't need to confuse yourself. So $10,000, 1 cent, report. $10,000 only, don't report. Okay? Report when they are thought to involve tax matters. That means tax evasion is money laundering. So even if it involves tax matter, you must report unless it's tax avoidance. Definition of a financial institution. Any institution offering one or more. حبة حبة هتلاقيها موجودة بس ال numbering different. Okay? You will find it. لا لا أنت عديتيها كده عديتيها حضرتك عديتيها. أنت دخلتي في بازل. هتلاقيها فاتت يمكن بس يمكن هتلاقي الترتيب متغير شوية. طيب مفيش مشكلة. Take your time. Take your time. موجودة والله هتلاقيها في الأول خالص. هتلاقيها بعد ال recommendations. After recommendations. هتلاقيها موجودة. مفيش حاجة مش موجودة مش بس ساعات بغير عشان ال illustration purpose. بس هتلاقيها كلها موجودة عندك. موجودة يا جماعة والله. Let me tell. لا 131. 131 up. 131. لا ما تقارنيش طيب اوكي اهم حاجه بس ما يكونش المرض بس اوكي طيب شباب any institution offering one or more of this service one or more okay it's a financial institution not necessarily all of them even one of these services that means you're an FI okay and again this is heavily tested in the exam they will give you which of the following is FIs and in each option they'll give you 3 or 4 different types of companies and you would need to make sure that you choose what applies okay accepting deposit FI providing lending service FI providing financial leasing FI transfer of value or money so hawala dar is an FI okay issues and manages means of payments issues financial guarantees trade in money market instruments foreign exchange securities commodities futures FI participate in securities issues, provision of financial services related to such issues, FI. Providing portfolio management services, FI. Providing safekeeping, administration of cash or liquid securities, FI. Invest, manage or administer funds, FI. Underwriting and placing life insurance and other investment-related insurance, FI. So if they ask you in the exam, insurance company, is it an FI or DNFBB? Insurance companies, are they FI or DNFBB? FI. No, wrong. Insurance companies only when they issue life or investment-related insurance are FI. If they don't, they are not. So, Fidelity Insurance Company, DNFBB. Car Insurance Company, DNFBB. Fire Insurance Company, DNFBB. Life Insurance Company, FI. Investment-related insurance company, FI. Okay? Very clear. So, they didn't say here insurance company. When insurance company underwrites and places life insurance and other investment-related insurance, only it's an FI. Other than that, it's not. Okay? Again, this is very important. Engaging in money and currency changing, it's an FI. DNFBBs. Okay? Casinos, real estate agents, dealers in precious metals and stones, lawyers, notaries, and accountants, which are gatekeepers. Okay? TCSPs, trust and company service providers. Non-life, non-investment related insurance companies is a DNFBB.
Why it's considered financial security? It's related to life.
Because it includes funds. Fund is an investment part. So if you invest and manage my funds, if I manage clients' money, that's a financial service. You're managing my money, right? So you're putting it in a fund and doing portfolio management and investing my fund, my money. So that's financial service.
Have you taken any life insurance first?
Yeah. Even in life insurance, they sit with you and they ask you which type of customer you are. Are you a risk taker? Are you a risk adverse? Are you a risk conservative? So, and they, based on that, they will decide whether to invest in stocks or bonds, low risk product investment. Because you have a retirement plan, you have lots of things. These are investment. These are funds. So, and in life, it can have like pensions. Like for example, when you reach 60, they start paying you. That's different from the normal insurance. If my car didn't meet in any accident, I lost my insurance policy, finished. But in life insurance, after let's say a certain period of time, I have a fund. This fund is worth that much. That's mine. Okay? Okay? So we understood now what's DNFBBs, designated non-financial businesses and professions. Transparency of legal persons, we explained that you need to know the owners, the directors, the shareholders holding 25% or more.
Here these designated non-financial businesses, the lawyers, notaries, and accountants are included here.
Yes, gatekeepers.
Actually, gatekeepers.
All gatekeepers. All gatekeepers, yes. Shell banks, a bank that's incorporated in a jurisdiction where it has no physical presence and is unaffiliated with a regulated financial group. That's again, we spoke about it, I think, in the first day, right? Did we speak about Shell Bank? Yes. So, yeah, Shell banks are prohibited under the FATF. Under the US, foreign non-US Shell banks are prohibited. US Shell banks are okay. Okay? That's the difference. Okay? In the US, for non-US Shell banks are prohibited. US Shell banks are okay. Under the FATF, any Shell bank is prohibited. FATF, yes. Shell banks, not virtual bank. Virtual is different. It is a shell bank, but as I said, some shell banks they do have a connection with another banking group. So there are certain arrangements in the US. It's a bit more complicated, but they do allow the shell banks because they have due diligence on them. That's what they put. Here under the FATF, no shell banks. FATF shell banks are prohibited.
Do not have the physical
Of the head office, yes. Okay. No correspondent relationship with shell banks. So shell banks are not allowed to maintain accounts, and they are not allowed to be in the correspondency relationship as well. Regulation and supervision. Financial institutions should be subject to adequate regulation and are effectively implementing the FATF recommendations. Countries should take measures to prevent criminals from owning or managing financial institutions, and that's again very important. So you should not be allowing criminals to own banks and financial institutions, otherwise they will have access to funds. MSB should be licensed or registered and subject to monitoring and compliance. MSB stands for money service businesses like exchange houses, money remitters, check cashers, and so on. Under the FATF, they will tell you. Under the FATF or no? Under the FATF, it's not. It is prohibited. Yes. Under the US, no correspondence relationship with a non-US shell bank. Yes. Okay. It's fine for them. Yes. For US. Yeah. Okay. FIU. Countries should establish financial intelligence units for receiving, requesting, analyzing, and disseminating suspicious transaction reports, STRs, and other information regarding money laundering and terrorism financing. Flashcard. Yeah. Yeah.
So what is this requesting? Requesting additional information?
Yes. Yes, because as I told you, once you report there, they have the right to provide, to ask you for additional information. They provide even an investigation team that they go and seek for further information. So they have the right to ask for information, even without reporting, by the way. So you can get the FIU asking the bank, requesting the bank for certain information. Okay? So again, flashcard, please. This is the definition of an FIU. Okay? Mutual legal assistance recommendation 37. So we are now in category 7. Just a couple of slides and we will break. Huh? So MLATs not prohibit or place on.
Other recommendations are not important.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. We skip, but as I said, you are required to read all of them. But here I'm just getting some selective ones. But that doesn't mean the others are not important. Flashcard, yes, definition of an FIU. Yes. So, mutual legal assistance not prohibit or place unreasonable or unduly restrictive conditions on the provision of mutual legal assistance. So, you should not have any condition that will prevent or be an obstacle in the way of mutual legal assistance. Ensure that they have clear and efficient processes for the execution of mutual legal assistance requests. The procedures for exchanging information. Is it through, FIUs? Is it through, is it through, for example, when you talk here about MLATs, it's mainly through at a government, central government body. Yeah, but what is the procedures? What is the mechanism of exchanging information? Because many times when you don't document that, then they start fighting over how do you want to do it? Do you want to exchange it through diplomatic bag or through this or through that? Oh, well, it's not mentioned, then again, it ends up not being done. So we need to have a clear procedure. Like when I go to the banks and they mention the STR, suspicious transaction reporting. What are the steps of filing an STR? That's very important. Don't give me only the red flags. When I find this, I will report. Yes, but how do you report? What is the steps for reporting? Do you seek legal approval? What if legal approval didn't come? Would the MLRO still report? The procedures itself. That's very important. Okay? Not to refuse to execute a request for mutual legal assistance on the grounds that the offense involved fiscal matters or on the grounds of secrecy laws. So in this case here, your secrecy laws should not prohibit or prevent the mutual legal assistance. Render mutual legal assistance even in the absence of dual criminality. I will not tell you, well, I will give you this cooperation if you cooperate with me. No, it's even if it's only one-sided, then you need to cooperate. Devise and apply mechanisms for determining best venue for prosecution of defendants. Okay, so you need to see what are the venue for the prosecution. Of course. Yeah.
Means that suppose tax evasion.
Yeah.
Not crime.
Criminal here, for example, and it's criminal somewhere else.
So even though that consistency is not there, you have to cooperate.
That's right.
But I think reciprocity, what you're saying is reciprocity.
Reciprocity, yeah, exactly. Right? So again, determine the best venue for the prosecution of defendants. The FATF style regional bodies, FSRPs, these are the FSRPs. And I'm not going to go through that. I provided that in the materials. So you have the different regional bodies. That is there. So you just can go through them. And this is the Asia Pacific group. And that's all what you need to know about the FATF. Okay. Good afternoon. We covered the FATF, Financial Action Task Force, and of course this is one of the most important international standards on money laundering. Now we're going to be discussing Basel Committee on banking supervision, whose main focus is not AML. They do have some papers talking about due diligence, and they do tackle AML, but that's not their main objective. Whereas the FATF main objective is AML. That's why the FATF is one of the most important organizations that we need to be aware of. Basel, the committee was established by the central bank governors of the group of 10 countries at the end of 1974. So the date of establishment is 1974. So Basel is older than the FATF. FATF was in 1989, whereas Basel in 1974. It meets regularly 4 times a year. It has 4 main working groups which also meet on a regular basis. The committee reports to the central bank governors of the G10 countries and to the heads of supervisory authorities of these countries where the central bank does not have a formal responsibility. The central bank is not the main regulator in every country. Like for example, in the UK, the central bank is not the regulator, whereas you have the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, is the regulator in the UK. So where the central bank does not have a formal supervisory role, then the head of the supervisory authority is a member of a Basel committee. Yep. Sure.
Do you apply the same criteria or the same questions that you mentioned?
Yes. Yes. So we need to know when date of establishment, who are the members, what is the objectives, what did they issue, and whether it's mandatory or not. Yep. Members are the central bank governors of the G10. The G10 is actually 11 nations. So here the members are not the central banks. Very important. The central bank governors, where the central bank has a formal supervisory role, or the heads of the supervisory authority, where the central bank does not have a formal supervisory role. So the members here are not central banks, because many people, they just miss central bank and they miss governors at the end. No, it's not the central bank, it's the central bank governor is the member. Objective, enhance understanding of key supervisory issues and improve the quality of banking supervision worldwide. Ensure that banks have procedures in place to avoid involvement with criminals. So to avoid the risk of bad customers. So here we're talking from a risk perspective. Okay? Interest in KYC revolves around the use of customary due diligence to mitigate the risks of undesired customer. That means the customer that we need to reject, not to establish relation with. Crucial for safety and soundness of banking system. That means one of the main objectives of Basel Committee is to ensure the safety and soundness of the banking system. And that's very important. It comes a lot in the multiple choice. So whatever bullet points here is flashcard. It comes a lot in the multiple choice. What are the objectives of Basel Committee? Okay? These are the members of Basel Committee. So as I said, it's a G10, but the G10 are 11 nations. So the central bank governors of these countries, or the heads of supervisory authorities, where the central bank does not have formal responsibility of these countries, are the members of Basel Committee. So we have 11 members, 11 central bank governors or head of supervisory authority. Okay? Without customary due diligence, banks may be subject or exposed to various types of risks, as reputational risk, as legal risk, as concentration risk, and operational risk. So without proper CDD, banks will be exposed to these types of risks. Again, if I asked you, compliance is which type of risk? Okay. Compliance is legal risk. AML is which type of risk? Legal, still. So AML is legal risk. Okay? So again, in the exam, if they asked you compliance or AML, they're both legal risks. How to deal with legal risks? By reporting. If you face a legal risk, you need to report. That's how you mitigate this risk. Okay? CDD for banks, paper of October 2001, it has 5 sections. Introduction, importance of KYC standards for supervisors and banks, essential elements of KYC standards, role of supervisors, implementation of KYC standards in a cross-border context. And the 4 main elements of Basel KYC is Customer Acceptance Policy, CAP, Customer Identification Program, CIP, Ongoing Monitoring, and Risk Management. Again, flashcard. So the 4 main elements of Basel KYC, Customer Acceptance Policy, Customer Identification Program, Ongoing Monitoring, and Risk Management. So if I am to assess the risk management in any bank, I will be looking at 4 main elements. I will look at their customer acceptance policy, how they accept the customer, how they are documenting their customer acceptance, how good is the policy, whether they're really applying it or not. I will look at their customer identification program, how they identify the customers, which types of IDs, all these kind of things. Then I will look at their monitoring procedures, monitoring controls on the customers, and I will look at their risk metrics and the risk management for the customers. If those 4 elements are satisfactory, I would say that this bank has a proper KYC in place as per Basel Committee. If any of them failed, then that means the KYC is non-satisfactory. Which one? This one? This one. Sure. Reputational risk, any risk that affects the reputation of the bank. So financial crimes will pose a reputational risk. Internal fraud will pose a reputational risk. Anything that will affect the reputation of the bank. So any risk that is affecting the reputation of the bank is a reputational risk. Compliant and non-compliant. There are lots of people who put partially compliant. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, when it comes to be satisfactory.
Yeah.
You said if one element is not
Yep.
met,
Yep.
it's not satisfactory.
Yes. Why? Because I'm always against partially compliant. There's nothing called partially compliant. Either you're compliant or you're not. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not compliant, that means you are bad. For example, let's say I'm not compliant in terms of implementing an AML system, but I'm currently in the process of implementation. So in this case, do you have an AML system in place? I would say no. So that means non-compliant. In the remarks, I would say that we are in the process of implementation. And that's why if you open the door for P or partially, that means you will give the option for people to relax. So either you're compliant or either you're not. Partial compliant is as good as non-compliant. It wouldn't matter if you are partially compliant or non-compliant. I mean, like, as I said, yep, that's why we give you the remarks. So you need to answer. If I'm putting a note that, or a finding that you're not compliant, there is management response. That means, yes, we are not compliant currently, but we are in the process of implementing of a system, which, again, is satisfactory. That's not a problem. But
It wouldn't be that in the footnote. It would be in the context of the assessment.
yep. Yep. Yeah. You had a question? انت عندك سؤال؟ No? رجعتي في كلامك؟ Okay. لا هنا بتكلم على institutional level. هنا mainly main focus هنا البانكس. فأنا I'm talking about the bank itself. if you want to apply to the country نفس الحكاية. يعني النهارده أنت if you talk about the country, the countries that don't have AML laws, AML regulation, that's affecting their reputation. You get the point? Countries that are of prime money laundering concern, for example, like Colombia, Mexico, they have a reputational risk on the country. So whichever level you want to look at, but mainly the focus of Basel here is mainly for banks, for financial institutions, not on a country level. Yeah. So that's a reputational legal risk. We mentioned anything affecting the legal status of the bank, and which types of risks that are mainly dealt with by reporting. So any illegal action that's mainly dealt with by reporting is classified as legal risk, and that's why compliance and AML are legal risk, because in this case you just report, and that's all what you need to do. Concentration risk is mainly when you are giving a large part of your credit portfolio to either one customer or a few types of customers. So here you are not having a proper credit concentration in the market. If this customer defaulted, you will lose a huge percentage from your credit portfolio. That's a concentration risk. That's why banks, central banks also, they have measures that you need to have some diversification in terms of your credits that are given to customers. Don't give all your credit to one customer or two customers. Then in this case, if something goes wrong, then you will lose all your money. Operational risk, of course, that's a huge thing. Where, you know, I mean, fraud will come into being. I mean, internal audit mainly will be looking for, monitoring the operational risk of the bank, and anything related to the operations of the bank that's considered as an operational risk. So that's the most wide thing actually, which is affecting all the operations of the bank. If you look at AML, of course, AML will affect all those. It will affect, for example, the reputation, because when you get a fine, that's also affecting your reputation as a bank. It will affect your operation. It can affect even your strategic risk, because if I'm planning, let's say, to strategically to expand for example, my private banking, and I lost my license as in Citibank. So in this case, it affected my strategic risk, because I have to change my strategy. I cannot expand my private banking where I have no license for private banking, and so on. So, but the classification is important. So as I said, compliance and AML are classified as legal risk. However, they do affect the other types of risk. They affect the strategic, they affect the reputation, they affect the operation of the bank. All these are effects. But as a classification, compliance and AML are legal risks. Yes? Yeah, they can get you some types of risk, and they will tell you, for example, classify this risk. Is it considered a legal risk? Is it considered? And they can do ask something like this. So you need to, because in the risk, you need first of all to identify the risk, assess the risk. You need to classify the risk. So because classification of the risk will determine how you deal with that risk. There are certain risks that you deal with by reporting, as I mentioned in case of legal risk. There are certain risks that you deal with by transferring, like in terms of insurance. How do you deal with the fire risk? By having a fire insurance policy. Fidelity, employees, stealing money and so on, and lack of trust. That means you do a fidelity insurance. That means if in case employee steals from the bank, then the insurance will cover. So there are certain risks that you deal with by transferring of this risk to the insurance company. There are certain risks that you deal with through reporting, and there are certain risks that you need to deal with by setting up certain controls in cases of, for example, operational risk. You need to have some internal controls like segregation of duties, like maker and checker, like periodic reports, like written policies, procedures. All these are controls that you put to deal with operational risk. Why do we need KYC? Again, based on the long experience that I had in assessing banks and doing AML audits and examinations, I revealed that if the bank has poor KYC, they will for sure have poor STR quality. That's a golden rule. Because the golden rule says you cannot get to suspicious unless you get to unusual, and you cannot know what's unusual unless you know your customer. Without knowing your customer, you are blind in the dark. You don't know anything. And let me prove that by giving you some case studies, and each case study will give you 4 options to choose from. The options remain the same for all the 4 cases. So I'll give you at the beginning the options, and then I will give you the cases, and for each case you need to choose one of those 4 options. Okay? The options are A, usual transaction, B, unusual transaction, C, suspicious transaction, D, I cannot tell. Okay? So usual, unusual, suspicious, I don't know. Okay? Case number 1. Customer X came to a bank in UAE and he deposited 200,000 dirhams. Pick up one option.
I don't know because we don't know who is that customer.
The right answer is I don't know. Who's customer X? I don't know. Right? Okay. I'll start giving you some information in the case 2. So that customer is Al-Futtaim Group. Pick up an answer. Usual. Actually, it's less than usual. Right? Why he's upset with us? Why did he deposit only 200,000? Should have deposited more, right? So, usual. Taxi driver. Case number 3. Unusual. Not yet suspicious. Unusual. It's not impossible for a taxi driver to deposit 200,000, but it's not usual. What could be the justification? He could have inherited money. He could have won a lottery. He could have been living in a family home and he sold his family home. He had some assets, he sold it. So if he came with that amount of money, with the proof that he sold an asset, a family home, or inherited money.
My husband, one of their employees, 90 million into his account.
Okay.
So they fired him.
I don't think he needs the bank anyway. If he has 90 million, I don't think I need the job.
Like he went to clear himself.
Yeah.
It was an inheritance.
Inheritance, yeah. Yeah. Some people, they may be poor, but he has a very rich uncle who doesn't have an heir. He's the only heir for that uncle. And he married a rich wife, you know, and because he's a taxi driver, we do not need to kill him, you know. He's a human being at the end of the day. So as far as he provides proper documents, it is unusual. You don't see taxi drivers daily basis doing this kind of transaction, but it's not suspicious yet. Okay, when it's going to be suspicious? When I tell you taxi driver depositing this amount without normal banking justification, without any proof or without documents. In this case, it's suspicious. So the conclusion from this out of these 4 cases is as follows. There is nothing called usual and unusual standalone. The usual or unusual is always in relation to the customer. So what is usual for one customer may be unusual for a different customer. So we cannot say the deposit of 200,000 is unusual. No. The deposit of 200,000 is usual for Al-Futtaim, but unusual for a taxi driver. Both of them, they came and they did exactly copy and paste of the same act, same transaction. For one customer, it's usual. For one customer, it's unusual. Why? Because it's always related to that customer. So if I don't know Al-Futtaim from the taxi driver, I will not be able to differentiate between what's usual and what's unusual because I don't know. That's why in the beginning, when we said customer X, who's customer X? You don't know. You could not identify what's usual and what's unusual. Normally, when you step to the unusual phase, you start your investigation to see if it is suspicious or not. So you would request for justifications, source of funds, documents. If you got that, then you will close the case, satisfactory. But if you don't, then in this case, it becomes suspicious and it's worth filing an STR. So poor KYC will end up with poor STR quality. That's the golden rule in here. And that's why we always, regulators, they stress on the importance of your KYC. You need to have a proper KYC to be able to fight money laundering and fight terrorism financing. Okay? So, don't forget willful blindness, which is defined by courts as a deliberate avoidance of knowledge of the facts or purposeful indifference. Courts have held that willful blindness is the equivalent of actual knowledge of the illegal source of funds or of the intentions of a customer in a money laundering transaction. It is opposite of what's happening, what's going on, and why. And that's why, ironically, I always say that the best compliance officer is a small kid. When you have a small son, he started still to talk and so on. Papa, he keeps on asking, why is this? You tell him, yes, but why? Yes, but I don't understand. That's why. That's the due diligence. He's trying to do due diligence. He's trying to understand. Rather than a person, well, why did this happen? I don't care. I'm indifferent. So that's the opposite. That's why the small kid is the best compliance officer. Yeah, they kill you with the question, type of question, because they want to understand. They want to do their due diligence. That's how it is. So what's happening? What's going on? Why? This is what we need to do as bankers. But just processing a transaction, we don't know anything about the transaction, just processing it like this, that's a lack of due diligence, and that's considered a willful blindness because you are not actually seeking information and doing your required due diligence. CDD should be conducted over a person or entity that maintains an account with the bank, which I believe, from my point of view, is easy. Or those on whose behalf account is maintained. That's very difficult. So here, the UBO. So many banks actually stop at here. Those who are maintaining accounts with us. But are these your customers only? Your customers? Yes. Only? No. You got the point? So you have other customers. Those who, on whose behalf the accounts are being maintained. I always say a simple question. Do you think the criminal is stupid enough, dumb enough, to know that his name is on the blacklist and he will step to the bank and open an account? I don't think he's that dumb. But if I know my name is on OFAC or my name is on the blacklist, I will never open an account in my name. But I will come to the bank, bringing them a nice guy who is clean history. He will open the account, he will establish the relation, then I will start to have a control over that account. Then I'm your bank customer, but you don't know anything about me. That's how it is. And that's why this is the most tough part, and this is the most challenging part, that the banks need to know who are really their customers, whom they are really dealing with. That means they need to identify the UBO. So a person or an entity that maintains an account with the bank is relatively easy, but those on whose behalf an account is maintained is the big challenge. Beneficiaries of transactions conducted by professional intermediaries. You get a professional intermediary, you get a lawyer who's doing a transaction on behalf of another customer, or the beneficiaries of this transaction is different customers. Again, we need to identify these as beneficiaries. Any person or entity connected with the financial transaction who can pose a significant reputational or other risk to the bank. So, for example, let's say in trade-based money laundering, in LC, you will find the supplier, the customer, they will look at their countries. I would need still to look at the route of the LC. If the shipment stops in Syria, do you have a problem? Yeah, I do. Syria is a blacklisted country, so if the shipment stops in Syria, then there is a risk. If that LC is in US dollar, you are putting your US correspondency relationship at stake, right? Because they will tell you, how could you allow the route of the LC to pass by a blacklisted country, especially if the ship is transiting in that country? What could have been loaded or offloaded from the ship? There is always a risk, right? So in this case, I need to know who are the persons or entities connected with this financial transaction. That means you need to know whom you are really dealing with. Applies at the establishment of the relationship, as I mentioned before. When you establish the relation, you establish your due diligence. Undertake regular reviews of existing records that should occur when a significant transaction takes place. In this case, that means there is a change in profile. The customer have changed the way he is operating on the account. Then, do I really have the latest due diligence information, or there is something I'm missing? Did he change his job? Did he get an extra job? Does he have an extra source of income? What's going on? Documentation changes substantially. There is substantial change in documentation. I need to understand what is going on. I need to make sure that I'm up to date with the latest information and documentation about the customer. When there is a material change in the way the account is operated, again, there is a change in the profile. The customer has been, for example, doing cash deposits. Now he started to do transfers. Now he started to, do different types of transactions. Then in this case, I need to understand what is really going on. Okay? Correspondent relationship should take into consideration information about the respondent bank's management, ownership, major business activities, location, money laundering prevention and detection efforts, purpose of the account, identity of any third-party entities that will use the account, condition of the bank regulations, and supervision in the respondent country. Flashcard. Okay, I'm sorry, but this section is all flashcards. Okay? Risk management and effective KYC procedures should incorporate another flashcard. Routines for proper management oversight. systems and controls, segregation of duties, training and policies, study by heart, flashcard. Again, they will tell you all of the following are among the KYC procedures for an effective risk management, except 3 of this, 1 wrong. You need to pick up the wrong one. Okay? Or they can tell you, choose 1 or more of the options. And they give you 3 right, 1 wrong. So then you need to choose, let's say, A, B, and C, A, B, and D, whatever applies. So again, you need to be able to pick up what is the components here. Okay, question? Okay. Mm-hmm. No, as a bank, being part of the LC, I may request the customer to change the route of the shipment, because I cannot process this LC. No, I can't.
Because if it's only a transit,
Mm-hmm.
for example, in Iran,
Mm-hmm.
okay, as a bank, you will not make sure that maybe they upload some other goods.
No, it's none of my business what they will do, but I will not take the risk of having it transiting in Iran. So I will tell them you need to stop the shipment. You can transit it in Jordan, but not in Iran.
But do you have that?
Yes. Otherwise, I will not process the LC. No, everywhere, even in this part of the world, I was doing. I cannot have an LC shipment stopping in Syria or in Iran. I cannot. I asked them to change the route. If they refuse, then I will not issue them the LC. Business decision. As I said, I'm a business person. Mm-hmm. They will handle. I mean, they either if they cannot convince the customer to change the route, we will not do the LC. We will decline this business.
Are there any legal consequences as a bank? Because it's not the final destination port. It's just a transit.
Yep. There is our legal.
Someone who will check the shipment once it reaches to the final port.
Yep. But it is your responsibility.
It is according to the documents provided.
Yep.
So there is another body that oversees this process apart from the bank. So the bank.
Yeah, but you cannot rely on other person. Everybody should do his job. So as a bank, if you are an issuer of that LC, or if you're a receiver of that LC, you should make sure that the LC is not passing by or transiting in a blacklisted country. So I do check the route of the LC. I do check the route. If you don't, then you are taking a risk.
The route, but as I said, it's just a transit. So they are not
Loading or offloading. No, I will not allow transit as well. I will ask them to change.
I think it is depending on the bank to bank.
Yeah, it's depending on the bank to bank, but as I said, from a US perspective, if you are dealing in having an LC in US dollar and it did transit in a blacklisted country, and they quote it, you will be fined. You will be fined. And I had this case. Yeah, of course. Yeah, because when you apply, many people they don't understand the US dollar. By the way, if you look at the US laws, you will get scared. If you apply in the US dollar, you must comply with the US regulations. This is number 1. Number 2, if you violate the US regulation, they have the right to arrest you and take you to the US and apply the US law on you. See to what extent?
only if it was the LC
In
US.
Yeah, in US dollar. What if it was in euro and the blacklist was on the European directives, like European Union blacklist?
Okay, if it was in dirham, so there is no issue.
If it was in dirham, they will consider it as a U-turn. So that you are moving behind their back, and that's again heavily fined. But the chances of discovering you is much more difficult. Why? Because you don't pass in front of the radar. But when it is US dollar, it clears in New York. So it passes in front of the radar. So the chances of you getting caught is much higher than dealing with the local currency.
Suppose in case of India, now they will purchase oil from Iran.
Yeah. They will use the Indian rupee, the Iranian, currency. Yeah, but if there was an investigation, and then they did look into this as a US, Section 317 will apply.
As a government for whole country they are purchasing.
Yeah.
So if not
Yeah.
And they were paying the government, exchequer was paid through to government exchequer, like Minister of Finance to Minister of Finance.
Mm.
So this was not problem because it was not dealt in USD.
Yeah, but as I said, they do have Section 317, which is, again, the US long arm law. Whether you deal in the US, whether you are having a US branch, they do have the right to come to you under Section 317. Again, it's at their own discretion.
They allow this rule, for example.
Hmm?
Why they allow the IMB or whoever is responsible for it? So why they allow the rules or this ships to?
A shipping company can, I mean, because, yeah, fine, I can allow it, but as a bank, I may not allow it. I mean, because as I said, if it's violating my AML regulations and it's going to affect my US correspondence and can put me under fine, it's my responsibility as a bank to reject this.
Shipping company, you may take this. Tomorrow you
Yeah.
will blacklist it.
Yeah.
But isn't it monitored by the IMB?
It is more than that's why the shipping companies, they always change their names. They do change their names, and that's why in the blacklist that we provide to the banks, we provide them the IMU number of the ship. Because if you change the name, the IMU will remain the same. The IMU is like the chassis of the car. You can change your car plate number, you can change your car color, but you cannot change the chassis number, right? So chassis number is something unique to that car. You cannot change it. That's why the shipping company, today my shipping company is called ABC Shipping Company. Tomorrow, ABC was blacklisted. I will call myself XYZ Shipping Company. But the IMU of the ship will remain the same. So for us, if you go check XYZ, I will be able to tell you that XYZ was previously ABC. How did I know? I will link the IMU number of the ship. I will tell you this is this, but they changed their name. That's why shipping companies, they don't have that regulations as banks.
Yeah.
So they can violate. But that doesn't mean, as a bank, you go with them. No, you have other regulations you need to take care of. That's why it is your responsibility to check the route of the shipment, the origin of the shipment, the destination of the shipment, and the route of the shipment. That's part of your job. Otherwise, how would you have control over trade-based money laundering? If everybody's saying it is the other person's responsibility. At the end, nobody's doing it. This is a disaster, that nobody's doing it at the end. Everybody's relying on the other party. You cannot. You have to do your job. Yeah? Right, so again, flashcard as we mentioned. So what are the different risk management and effective know your customer procedures, routines for proper management oversight, systems and controls, segregation of duties, training and policies. Internal audit. We mentioned it's one of the 5 elements of the program. Designation of an officer, written policies, procedures and controls, training and awareness, internal audit or independent assessment. So, assessment independently evaluates the effectiveness of the risk management and controls of the AML CTF program. Any program, even if it is perfect, if it's not audited, it's incomplete. Can you imagine? Even if I came as an auditor and I didn't find any findings, the fact that it was not audited makes it incomplete. Yeah, not having the independent assessment. It's part of your program. Even if you said that my program is perfect, and we go and audit it after or examine it, we find it really perfect. The fact that it's not audited make it imperfect. It must be audited. No, it's part of the AML program itself. 5 main elements. One element is the independent assessment. Not self. No, it's not self-assessment. Independent assessment. It's not self-assessment. It's some. In self-assessment, you are the maker and you are the checker. In independent assessment, you are the maker, but somebody else is the checker.
Like statutory audit, external audit,
Yeah.
KPMG.
Yeah, you're not the one doing that. Okay? So, should report to audit committee of the board of directors or similar position. Internal auditors should be proactive in follow-up on their findings and criticism. That's why, for example, I did lots of compliance and AML audits. The first thing I ask for is the previous audit report. That's the first thing. Let us see the previous findings. Have they been cleared? Or they are still there? You got the point? That's the very important thing. because they have not been cleared. What is the point in adding more findings? And if you guys are not clearing it, you're not taking any corrective actions. So the first thing as an auditor to come is to check the previous audit report. Have the findings been cleared or not yet? If they're being cleared, that means the bank is really making benefit of the independent. What is the whole concept of the independent assessment? Is to issue the findings, find the flaws, and correct them. But I'm finding the flaws, and they are being ignored. So what is the whole purpose of the independent assessment? It normally goes to the local regulations. So again, some countries, they say, well, every 3 years you have to change the auditor, every 5 years you have to change the auditor. But here we're talking about not the financial audit. We are talking about the independent assessment of the AML. So again, if there is any local requirement to rotate the auditor, that should be followed. Yes? PPNCs, policies, procedures, and controls. Yes. Designation. Yeah, the AML system. 5 pillars. PPNCs, policies, procedures, and controls. Designation of an officer. Training and awareness. Independent assessment or independent audit. Board of director oversight. 5 main elements. لا مش بازل، ده ال AML program. ايه هي الكومبوننتس، ايه هي عناصر او اسميها ركائز البرنامج مكافحة غسيل الأموال. Okay? Policies, procedures, and controls, designation of an officer, training and awareness, independent assessment, board of director oversight.
Now this customer due diligence.
Which one? Back?
All customer due diligence.
Uh-huh.
We have started about 4 key elements of KYC, right?
Mm.
Then customer due diligence is another topic totally.
No. You want to say what is the relation between CDD and KYC?
Which umbrella it is coming? These all, like KYC we have 4 elements.
Yeah.
So it is coming under that one?
KYC is part of CDD.
Okay.
So CDD procedures are always much larger than the KYC. Okay? So, we understood the internal audit. So as I said, internal audit is an essential element of any program. Any program which is not independently assessed is incomplete. Sound management of risks related to money laundering and terrorism financing. Guidelines on management of risk related to money laundering and terrorism financing describes how banks should include these risks within their overall risk management framework. Prudent management of this risk together with effective supervisory oversight is crucial in protecting the safety and soundness of the banks as well as the integrity of the financial system. These 2 things will come in multiple choice. So what is the objective of Basel Committee? Protecting the safety and soundness of the banks, protecting the integrity of the financial system. Again, they come a lot in the exam. So what is the objective of Basel Committee? Protecting the integrity of the banking system, protecting the safety and soundness of the banks. Okay? Safety and soundness, integrity. These are very important things. They come a lot in the exam. Consolidated KYC paper issued in 2004 October. Critical elements for effective management of KYC risk through the banking group. The best example here like HSBC. Most of the international big banks that they operate globally, worldwide. And of course, the CDD and the KYC requirements are different from one country to another. As I mentioned, for example, in the US, they require a social security number. In UK, they require address verification. So you must visit the customer to complete your address information. For example, in UAE here, we require physical address, in addition, home address, employer address, email, telephone number. So Emirates ID, okay. So, I mean, the KYC requirements differ from one country to another. So if you are dealing in a cross-border context, how can you make sure that you are compliant with all your regulatory framework? That's all what you need to know about Basel Committee. Any questions? هذا Basel finished دلوقتي. And this is done with Basel. Okay? طيب. خلاص قفلتوا؟ خلاص مفيش مكان ها؟ So, do you want us to stop here and continue tomorrow? Resume tomorrow? Yeah? Huh? I'm all yours. I'm all yours. You want to continue? I can continue. I need like 15, 20 minutes more. If you want to stop here, if you are overwhelmed with information, we can always continue tomorrow. Continue tomorrow? Okay. I think everybody is like, or most of the people will want to continue tomorrow. Okay, top. Any questions so far? Anything not clear? As I told you, sorry, this section requires lots of memorization, so you would need to put some time on that. You would need to put that time. I did my best to facilitate, to make it more easy for you, but you would need to put some effort on this section in particular.
So this Basel committee is again, it is not a regulatory.
No,
So
it's not mandatory.
It's not
Again,
mandatory.
yep.
Policy making.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Okay?
So Igman group, anybody wants or not now?
That's his domain. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Anyway, we'll stop here as per the request of all of you or most of you, and we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your